The smell of takeout filled the air. Korean BBQ, garlic fries, and extra spicy wings. I plopped down on the couch, balancing 3 plastic containers on my lap, mentally prepping for my favorite part of the day, binge-watching reality shows and not thinking about anything. Just as I was about to take the first bite, I froze. There he was, Hunter Foxwell, sitting across from me like some twisted plot twist in a show I didn't audition for. My mouth legit dropped open. Bro, where did he even come from? The man hadn't shown his face in months, and now he was just here, like a glitch in the Matrix. Looking every inch like a billionaire who'd just walked off the cover of GQ. Tailored suit, Rolex glinting, eyes as unreadable as a poker champ. Hey, he said, like this was normal, like we were a real married couple. We weren't. We were paper official, a contract, 2 years, 0 feelings, max boundaries. And guess what? Time was almost up. Hunter, I blinked, not even trying to hide the confusion in my voice. Didn't expect you to, pop up. He didn't answer right away, just stared, eyes scanning me like he was trying to memorize my face. Not in the creepy stalker way, more like he was conflicted. Which was weird, because this man was colder than iced-out marble. Feelings? Not in his vocabulary. We haven't seen each other in a while, he finally said. Understatement of the year. You mean, since? Christmas? Last year? I scoffed. Yeah, been a minute. Hunter looked away, then back at me. Just a few more months left, huh? Boom! There it was. The contract. My chest tightened, but I kept it together. We signed that prenup 2 years ago like business partners. I was the convenient bride, the stand-in wife, the one who smiled for the cameras and shut up behind closed doors. He needed a distraction from his scandalous ex, and I needed the cash to pay off Mum's medical debt and keep my acting dreams afloat. No romance, no expectations, just vibes. Yup, I said, popping a fry into my mouth like I hadn't just swallowed a bitter pill. TikTok! You'll be a free man in no time. Don't worry, I won't stick around longer than I should. Silence. I could feel his eyes on me, and it was weird because I wasn't used to his attention. Honestly, it made my skin itch. Not in a bad way, more like, this isn't how things are supposed to go. Do you have any final requests? He asked. I choked on my soda. Final requests? Dude, you make it sound like I'm on death row. He didn't smile. Not even a smirk. Hunter Foxwell was a master of stone cold. I just meant, if there's anything you want, before the contract ends. I stared at him for a beat. Was this a trap? A guilt trip? Some bizarre social experiment? Nah, I said with a shrug. You've done enough. Bankrolled my indie film. Paid my rent. Made me look legit in front of my dad's judgy golf buddies. That was the deal. I'm good. Hunter's jaw tightened. For a second, it looked like he wanted to say something else. Instead, he stood up and adjusted his cufflinks, like this conversation hadn't just slapped me in the emotional face. Cool. Well, enjoy your dinner. He turned to leave, but then he didn't. Instead of ghosting like usual, he lingered. And the next morning, he was still there, sitting in the kitchen, drinking coffee, wearing a hoodie, like a human. I blinked hard, twice. Are you off today? I asked, trying not to sound accusatory. But seriously, this man lived in boardrooms and private jets. I hadn't seen him without a tie since. Ever. Work's not that important right now, he replied. Excuse me, what? Hunter Foxwell, the guy who once took a conference call during a blackout at my mum's funeral, suddenly didn't care about work? Something was off. Way off. Then I remembered the headlines. His ex, Dalia Torres, back in LA after 2 years overseas. paparazzi swarming the airport, Twitter losing its collective mind. Was this his attempt to get her attention? My stomach turned, not from jealousy, more like annoyance. I wasn't about to become a pawn in their messy soap opera. So I did what any girl with boundaries and 2 middle fingers would do. I stayed out of his way. I holed up in my room with popcorn, Netflix, and zero chill. I avoided eye contact. I didn't ask questions. And I definitely didn't wonder why he kept knocking on my door every few hours, pretending like he had random reasons. Need anything from Whole Foods? Is the Wi-Fi acting weird for you too? What's that smell? Are you cooking something? Bro, just say you want to talk. But I played it cool, shrugged, nodded, gave him vague answers. Because catching feelings for your contract husband? Rookie move. And yet, every time he looked at me, really looked at me, like I was more than a checklist on his agenda, I felt it. That flicker, that maybe. But maybe wasn't in our contract. So I buried it. I kept it business. I reminded myself of the countdown. 2 more months. Then I'd disappear, and he'd go back to loving Dahlia, or whoever. And me? I'd go back to auditions and ramen dinners. But the thing is, something about the way he lingered in the hallway that night, the way his fingers brushed mine when he handed me tea, the way he whispered my name like it was something precious he didn't want to lose. Something told me that this story was far from over. Then it all clicked, like painfully clicked. Dahlia Torres wasn't just Hunter's ex, she was the blueprint, the original. And me? I was the reboot nobody asked for. The headlines hit me like a gut punch in slow-mo. Dahlia Torres returns to LA, like she was some celestial event we'd all been waiting for. I wasn't ready. Not emotionally, not mentally, not in any timeline. I knew why I was here, in this cold, sleek house, wearing Hunter Foxwell's last name like it actually belonged to me. It wasn't love. It was logistics. It was survival. Because once upon a time, someone looked at a casting sheet, saw my face, and thought, close enough. And not just back. She made a grand entrance like she never left. The moment I saw her face on my timeline, I felt like someone had sucker-punched me in the gut. She was everything I wasn't. Elegant, aloof, with that dangerous kind of beauty that made you want to stare and run at the same time. The kind of girl who could wreck empires just by walking into a room. My phone exploded with notifications. Paparazzi pics of Dahlia descending from a private jet like some kind of cinematic goddess. Wind in her hair. Heels clicking on the tarmac like she owned the damn planet. My fingers froze above my phone. My heart? Doing Olympic-level gymnastics. There it was. The beginning of the triangle. The real one. Because I finally understood what it meant to be the replacement. The bootleg. The filler in a story that never needed me in the first place. That name, Dahlia Torres, echoed in my head like a haunting chorus. She wasn't just an ex. She was the ex. The one who broke him. The one he never got over. The one he tried to forget by marrying someone who could maybe pass for her in low lighting. Me. I sat on my bed, knees pulled to my chest, my thoughts spiraling like a soap opera montage. Was he thinking about her now? Was I just a placeholder, until she decided to walk back in and claim what was hers? And then the door creaked open. Hunter. Tall. Collected. But his eyes were chaos. I have an event this weekend, he said, like he wasn't lighting a fire in the middle of my anxiety storm. I want you to come. My voice came out flat. With you? Yeah, it's a party. Some friends. That's when I knew. She was gonna be there. I narrowed my eyes, leaning against the doorframe, trying to look casual while every nerve in my body was screaming. My fingers clenched the wood, knuckles turning white, but I held the same calm, poker-faced look I'd perfected over the last 2 years. Is Dahlia going? Hunter didn't answer immediately. Instead, he glanced to the side like the window had suddenly become the most interesting object in the room. His Adam's apple bobbed once, tight, his jaw tensed. That delay? That flicker of guilt written across his stupid, perfect face? It screamed louder than words ever could. The longer he stayed silent, the more it hurt. Not like a stab, more like a slow, suffocating squeeze on my heart. I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from reacting. Because if I showed weakness, he'd win, and I couldn't afford to lose, not when I'd spent so long pretending I didn't care. Probably, he said finally, his voice lower than usual, like even he didn't want to hear it. Just one word, but it hit like a wrecking ball to the chest. And in that second I knew, I was just the seat filler in a story that was never mine. Probably. And that was it. The confirmation I didn't want, but absolutely needed. I forced a smile so fake it could have melted plastic. Cool. What time should I get dressed? Inside, I was breaking. Outside, I was the perfect porcelain doll. Let the games begin. The venue was a 5-star hotel in downtown LA, draped in chandeliers, velvet curtains, and an overload of people who smelled like money and ego. I wore a navy blue silk dress, Hunter picked out last minute, like tossing a bone to a stray. My hair was pinned up, makeup flawless. On the outside, I was playing the part. But inside, my stomach was doing backflips. We stepped in together, but the second we entered, I might as well have been invisible. Cameras flashed, guests gawked, and whispers followed us like shadows. Then she appeared. Dahlia Torres. Walking drama. A living, breathing plot twist in 5-inch stilettos. She entered like the room was her stage, and everyone else was background noise. Her crimson gown clung to every curve like it had signed a blood oath to perfection. Not a hair out of place, not a smirk wasted. She moved slow, deliberate, every step calculated to kill. The crowd parted for her like she was royalty, but when her eyes landed on Hunter, she looked through him. Not at him, not past him, through him, like he was an unpaid intern on a coffee run. Hunter's reaction? Bro, it was a whole emotional car crash. His body went stiff, and his grip on my arm loosened like he'd just lost circulation. His jaw locked, his brows furrowed, and for once, he didn't have a comeback, a nod, a single move. Just stillness. Frozen in time. I glanced up at him and swear, the man looked wrecked, like he wasn't expecting her to blank him that hard. And it wasn't just embarrassment, it was heartbreak in HD. The kind you don't talk about in therapy because it cuts too deep. He stood there for way too long, eyes stuck on her retreating figure. And in that silence, all I could hear was the sound of my own dignity quietly packing its bags. In a crimson gown that could have been tailor-made for heartbreak, gliding through the crowd like she owned it. Hunter froze. Literally froze. His jaw clenched, and for the briefest moment, his hand slipped from mine. That was all the confirmation I needed. I didn't wait for the awkward reintroduction. I let go of his arm and wandered off, heart pounding, ears ringing. Bathroom. Sanctuary. I locked myself in a stall, exhaling like I hadn't breathed since we arrived. My head was spinning, and I just needed 2 damn minutes to collect my shattered pride. But the universe had other plans. The door to the bathroom burst open, and in walked Dahlia and her equally savage bestie, their heels clicking like tiny gunshots on the marble floor. I swear, if I have to pretend to be impressed one more time, did you see what she was wearing? Dahlia scoffed, her voice echoing through the restroom. Total try. Hard energy, her friend chimed in. I mean, that silk dress? Bless her little budget heart. It's giving prom night, not high society. I froze. My heart was thudding in my ears so loud I could barely breathe. And her makeup. She's one waterproof mascara away from a breakdown, Dahlia added, voice dripping with poison. Hunter's playing house with a community theatre understudy. Like, how desperate do you have to be? My fists clenched so hard my nails dug into my palms. My stomach twisted into knots. Honestly, her friend giggled, if I didn't know better, I'd say she's auditioning for America's Next Placeholder. They both laughed. That smug, nasty kind of laugh that could tear skin. I had never felt so exposed. Like every flaw I tried to cover up had been put under a microscope and broadcast to the world. She wasn't just mocking my look, she was mocking me, my place, my worth, my entire existence in Hunter's life. My hands shook as I opened the stall door, my reflection catching in the mirror. And, for a second, I saw what they saw. A girl playing dress-up in a world that didn't want her. But I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of watching me fall apart. My hands shook. I opened the stall door and looked at myself in the mirror. I looked perfect, but I felt wrecked. I took a deep breath and walked out of the bathroom like nothing happened. Head high, spine straight. Back in the ballroom, I scanned for Hunter. He was talking to some old money execs, but his eyes darted around, searching for me. When he saw me, he practically jogged over. "There you are," he said, his voice laced with panic. "Had to powder my nose," I lied, smiling like I hadn't just overheard my worth being shredded. He placed a hand on my lower back and, in a voice loud enough for the nearby crowd, said, "Gentlemen, this is my wife." My heart thumped in confusion. What game was he playing? Before I could respond, Carter Stone strolled over, oozing mischief like it was a designer scent. The man was peak chaos in a custom tux, smirking like he knew all the secrets of the universe and had no intention of sharing them. Flanking him was a girl who didn't look like she belonged at a high society gala, and that's exactly why she did. She had wild, untamed curls that bounced with every step, combat boots peeking out from under a sequined mini dress, and a glittery pink purse shaped like a heart. Violet. Carter slid beside us, one hand in his pocket, the other casually guiding Violet like a showman, revealing his latest stunt. "Thought I'd bring some chaos to the circus," he said, eyes twinkling. "Meet Violet, my date for the evening. She's not famous, rich, or pretending to be either. Refreshing, huh?" Violet gave a tiny wave and leaned in, her voice just loud enough to be heard. "We met on Tinder 2 weeks ago. Fake girlfriend gig. $200 an hour. I upsell if I got a dance." My eyes widened. I blinked, then snorted. I couldn't help it. Carter raised an eyebrow like he was daring anyone to say something. Hunter looked between them, stunned, but Violet just smiled like she had nothing to prove. "Fake girlfriends club?" she whispered with a smirk. I stared for a second, then laughed, like really laughed. For the first time that night, the crushing weight on my chest cracked just a little. For once, I wasn't the only one playing pretend. And just like that, the whole night shifted. It started with the kind of misunderstanding that only happens in dramas, and somehow it became my real life. I was filming a scene for this intense indie flick, playing a girl who had months to live. Full-blown terminal vibes. The set team prepped everything: hospital bed, 4 drips, fake tears, and a ridiculously realistic medical folder with my name on it. That prop folder? It ended up on the living room coffee table at home. I didn't think twice. I left it there, while rushing to pack for my flight. No big deal, right? Except Hunter came home early that day. He walked in, probably expecting silence, maybe leftovers. Instead, he found a manila folder labeled Stage 4 glioblastoma in huge bold letters, and my name printed across the top like it was a death certificate. The man lost it, quietly, internally, like his world had just imploded and he didn't want anyone to hear it. No calls, no texts, No, hey, what the hell is this? Just silence, heartbreak, and a full-blown spiral. He wasn't snooping. He never had to. He just walked in one day, probably expecting to grab his charger or a forgotten tie, and there it was. A folder stamped with bold letters. Stage 4, glioblastoma. The dude panicked. Like, hard. He didn't call, didn't ask, didn't confront. He spiraled, quietly, in classic Hunter Foxwell fashion. Meanwhile, I had no idea any of this chaos was unfolding. I was too deep in my own emotional detour, packing up my life for what I thought would be a soft reset. A 3-month acting course in Paris, something I'd been dreaming about since before I could afford bus fare. I didn't tell Hunter face to face. Couldn't. Not because I was scared, but because I didn't want to see his cold, unreadable reaction. So I wrote a letter, just a few sentences. Straightforward, grateful, no drama, just a quiet goodbye, tucked between the bills and his Wall Street Journal. I told myself it was classy, gentle. But let's be real, it was a slow fade. The Uber driver who took me to the airport made small talk about dreams and destiny. I smiled, nodded, clutched my passport like it was a lifeline, and pretended I wasn't emotionally imploding inside. My best friend Nat Face timed me at the gate, hyping me up like I was heading to the Oscars. She didn't know this wasn't just a trip. It was me hitting eject on a life I wasn't sure I ever belonged in. I boarded that flight, thinking I was finally doing something for me. A clean break, a quiet escape. No screaming matches, no tears, just Paris, scripts, and croissants. I had no idea that back in LA, Hunter was falling apart thinking I'd just ghosted him to die alone. While I was sipping espresso and rehearsing monologues on cobblestone streets, Hunter was straight up spiraling like a heartbroken meme. The man thought I was dying, like actual dying, not ghosting, not dramatic exit, real terminal, lights out kind of dying. And instead of sending a text or booking a therapist, he went full Nicholas Sparks protagonist. He started calling every hospital in the state, like full-on manic mode. He even flew to random clinics across the country, desperate for a record, a doctor, a nurse, anyone to confirm I wasn't gone for good. He bribed private investigators, hacked into hospital databases, probably illegally, and lost his damn mind trying to track me down. And then TMZ got involved. Suddenly, the headlines were straight up cinematic. Billionaire CEO desperately searching for terminally ill wife who vanished. My face was everywhere. Paparazzi dug up my old Instagram selfies like they were clues in a mystery. News anchors speculated about my health. Random strangers lit candles outside our building. Like, bro. It turned into a whole Greek tragedy. Friends of Hunter started texting him like, "Do you need a grief counselor?" His stock value dropped. His mom flew in from Miami to pray over the furniture. Hunter wasn't just sad. He was broken. Lost in a way that didn't look good on a man who was always in control. And the world? The world watched him unravel like it was prime-time television. 3 months later, I came back. Tanned, chill, living my Parisian fantasy, totally clueless that my absence had wrecked someone else's entire world. I thought I was walking into my apartment. What I walked into was grief frozen in time. The second I opened the door, it hit me. The house was untouched. No lights on, no mail opened. My favorite mug still on the counter, dust on the shelves. It was like someone pressed pause the day I left. And the silence? Deafening. My suitcase wheels clacked against the hardwood like gunshots. Every step echoed in the void. My heart started to race. Something felt wrong, off in a way that made my stomach twist. Then I saw him. Hunter. In the kitchen, wearing a hoodie way too big for his frame, his beard unshaven, his hair a mess. The man looked like he'd crawled through a breakup playlist and forgot how to return to society. He was holding a chipped coffee mug with both hands like it was the only thing keeping him tethered to the earth. And then he saw me. The mug hit the floor, shattering. "Kira?" His voice was so hoarse, I almost didn't recognize it. I froze. "Hey," I said softly, stepping in like I might scare him off. "You okay?" He didn't answer. He just stared, lips parted, like he couldn't believe his eyes. And then he moved. Fast. He crossed the kitchen in 3 strides and pulled me into him, arms wrapping so tight I could barely breathe. His chest heaved. His whole body shook. "I thought you were gone," he whispered into my hair. "I thought you were—" He couldn't say the word. My eyes welled up, because in that hug, I felt it. All of it. The pain. The confusion. The relief. He hadn't just missed me. He'd mourned me. And the craziest part? He wasn't the only one who broke in those 3 months. I thought he was asleep when I stepped into the hallway. It was dark, the whole house still. But then, I saw his silhouette, leaning against the doorframe like a man haunted by something he couldn't name. Hunter turned slowly, his eyes catching the faint light. And when he saw me, standing there barefoot in an oversized hoodie, his whole face shifted. "Kira?" His voice cracked like a record playing too slow. "I'm here," I whispered, stepping closer. He didn't speak, didn't blink, just stood there, eyes wide, chest rising like he was trying to breathe underwater. His gaze was locked on me, but it wasn't focus, it was disbelief. Like his brain had short-circuited and was screaming "no way" while his heart was whispering "please." He took a shaky step forward, then another, like he was approaching a ghost. "You're not real," he muttered under his breath. "This isn't real." Then suddenly, he snapped. 2 steps, 1 breath, and his hands were on my face, trembling, as if touching me would keep me from vanishing. And then he kissed me. Not a sweet, movie scene kiss. Number. This was chaos. It was desperate. Like every ounce of grief and guilt and longing he'd buried came out in one hit of adrenaline. Like if he kissed me hard enough, he could breathe again. It wasn't soft or sweet. It was urgent, raw, messy, like he needed to feel me to believe I existed. I didn't kiss back. "Hunter, stop," I said, pushing gently on his chest. "You've got it wrong." I'm not sick." His eyes searched mine like they were begging me not to lie. "That medical report," I said, my throat closing up with guilt. "It's not what you think." His eyes locked on mine, searching, desperate for something to hold on to. It was fake," I admitted, heart pounding. "It was a prop, for a scene, for a role I was filming. I left it at the house and forgot it even existed." The silence that followed was so heavy, it practically sat on my chest. "I'm not dying, Hunter," I whispered, voice cracking. "I'm not sick. I wasn't keeping some tragic secret. I just needed a break. And I didn't know you'd find it. I didn't know it would break you." Hunter stumbled back a step like I'd slapped him. "A prop?" he repeated, blinking. "You mean you're not?" "No," I cut in. "I'm fine, healthy, alive. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I just needed space." His entire body deflated. Shoulders sagged. Hands fell to his sides like his bones couldn't hold him up anymore. His eyes shimmered like he was on the edge of a breakdown, caught between disbelief and heartbreak. For months, he'd been carrying the weight of a death that wasn't real, crying in secret, breaking in silence. And now, standing in front of him alive and breathing, I wasn't healing him. I was tearing open the wounds all over again. "I thought I was losing you," he said quietly, barely holding it together. "Every night, I prayed I'd wake up, and it wouldn't be true. I imagined your funeral. I wrote goodbye letters I never sent. I lost my damn mind, Kira. His voice cracked. And now you're here, telling me it was all fake? I nodded. Yeah, and I'm sorry, but I still think we should go through with the divorce. That pulled him right back to attention. Number. His voice was firmer this time. Steady. I raised an eyebrow. Hunter. No, he repeated. You don't get to come back from the dead and walk away like none of this mattered. Not to me. The air crackled between us. I didn't mean to hurt you, I said, voice small. But you did, he replied. And I still want you here. There was something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. It wasn't just duty. It wasn't obligation or guilt. It was raw, unfiltered emotion. A kind of softness mixed with stubbornness, like he'd spent the last few months running from feelings that finally caught up and smacked him in the face. It wasn't just, I want to fix this. It was, I can't lose you again. His eyes weren't begging. They were pleading, wide open and messy, like every wall he'd ever built was collapsing all at once. The guy who once ran his life like a Fortune 500 company was now standing in front of me looking completely undone. And it wasn't performative. It wasn't for show. It was love, or something terrifyingly close to it. The kind that grabs you by the throat and won't let go. And it scared me more than anything. The universe really said, let's make it worse, when Dahlia showed up at my favorite coffee shop the next day. I was minding my business, sipping an overpriced oat milk latte, when she materialized at my table like a stylish ghost with beef. Kira, she said smoothly, sliding into the seat across from me uninvited like she owned the air I was breathing. Her voice was sugar-laced venom, calm and calculated, the kind of tone that says, I smile while I destroy you. I looked up, caught completely off guard but masking it with a neutral expression. Dahlia, I replied, not bothering to fake the warmth. Didn't expect you here, unless you've got a new rom-com dropping in this cafe? She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice like she was about to spill some ancient curse. You need to stay away from Hunter. Boom. There it was. The room didn't spin, but something in my gut twisted. She looked deadly serious, like she was holding the final rose and I was an uninvited contestant. You don't belong in his life. You never did. You were just a distraction. A stand-in until he figured things out. And now that he's finally seeing straight again, it's time for you to exit. My hands tightened around the coffee cup, but I kept my expression cool. You really flew in here with villain monologue energy, huh? You mean existing? Her lip twitched. I know he still cares for me, deep down. And I know you think this little marriage of yours means something, but we both know how it started. I didn't flinch. I sat up straighter, looked her dead in the eye, and dropped it like a mic. Yeah, we both know how it started, and we both know how it ends. I paused for effect. Let her hang on the silence. I'm divorcing him, I said, calm as hell, but with that edge, the kind you only get when you've been dragged through emotional fire and came out glowing. Her expression cracked for half a second, like she hadn't expected me to be the one pulling the plug. Like I was supposed to beg, cry, cling. Not today. That caught her off guard. She blinked like she hadn't expected me to fold. But before either of us could say another word, a voice sliced through the air so sharp it felt like it could cut glass. She's not the one confusing anything, Dahlia. It was Hunter. Standing a few feet behind her, tall and furious, radiating the kind of energy that made people shut up and listen. Dahlia turned around slowly, her confident smirk slipping off her face like a glitch in the Matrix. For the first time in forever, she looked rattled. Hunter, she started, trying to mold her voice into that soft, sultry tone she always used when she wanted control. But Hunter wasn't having it. No, he cut her off, voice ice cold. You don't get to rewrite history and paint yourself as the saint in this story. You were the one who walked away. You chose fame, the spotlight, your solo storyline. And that's fine. But you don't get to storm back in like a reboot and try to recast the lead. A hush fell over the cafe. Baristas froze mid-pour. Even the couple in the corner stopped arguing. You've lied, manipulated, twisted every piece of the past to make yourself look like the one who got hurt. But newsflash, Dahlia, you're not the only one who bled. His voice was loud, clear, unshakable. And you don't get to touch anything in my life anymore. Especially not Kira. You left. You chose your career, your freedom, whatever. I respected that. But don't walk back into my life and pretend you get a say in anything now. Especially not when it comes to Kira. My jaw? On the floor. Dahlia stuttered, trying to piece together some excuse, but Hunter had already turned away. He reached for my hand. And for the first time, I saw it, really saw him. Not the curated image, not the power or the paycheck. I saw the man behind the mask, the one who looked like he hadn't slept in weeks, the one who stood up for me like I was more than a contract, more than a placeholder. He wasn't just powerful, he was broken in all the right ways. Loyal in ways no one ever gets to see, unless they've earned it. There was this quiet, kind of wrecked energy about him, like he'd built an empire but couldn't rebuild himself after almost losing me. I saw the cracks, the grief, the regret, and through them, I saw a kind of love that was scary, because it was real. And something deep inside me, some piece I thought had flatlined, started pulsing back to life. Not fireworks, just steady, undeniable warmth. Like my heart whispered, "Oh, it's him." It started on a plane. Not a private jet, not some glamorous meet-cute, just a cramped middle seat on a delayed flight from LAX to Chicago. A storm had grounded half the airport, and everyone was tense, but no one was more unbothered than the guy in the window seat with the AirPods in and the attitude turned up to 11. That guy? Hunter Foxwell. I was already stressed to the max, hair in a messy bun, eyeliner smudged, triple espresso kicking in, when I asked him to trade seats. He looked up like I'd asked him to donate a kidney. One sarcastic comment led to another, and 5 minutes later, we were beefing over pretzels like kids in a school cafeteria. He called me unhinged. I called him emotionally constipated, and then somewhere between turbulence and touchdown something flipped. We started laughing. Like, ugly laughing. The kind where you forget your problems, your plans, even your pain. We bonded over trash television, the kind with bad lighting and worse plot lines, debated whether pineapple belonged on pizza, and shared trauma over airport bathrooms that smelled like broken dreams. He told me about his first failed business at 17, and I told him about bombing an audition so bad the director laughed out loud. He teased me for carrying 5 books in my carry-on. I mocked him for reading stock reports instead of like a real novel. At one point we swapped playlists and roasted each other's taste in music until the flight attendant had to shush us. It wasn't romantic, it was real, chaotic, unfiltered. Like we weren't 2 strangers crashing into each other, but 2 people who were meant to sit in row 22B and 22C just to mess up each other's plans in the best way. He told me later he hadn't laughed like that in years. And honestly, me neither. And he never forgot it. Neither did I. He remembered. Hunter sat on the edge of the bed now, his hands resting on his knees, staring at the floor like it held the answers to everything. "I didn't choose you because you look like Dahlia," he said finally, voice quiet. "I chose you because when we met on that plane, you made me feel alive for the first time in years." I blinked, trying to process what he'd just said. "I was sick," he continued, eyes still down. "Doctors didn't think I had long. I didn't tell anyone. Not even her. I didn't want pity. I wanted peace. And you? You were this chaotic, messy, fearless stranger who made me forget I was dying. My breath caught in my throat. You smiled like nothing could break you, he added, finally looking up. I wanted to feel that. Just once. Even if it was fake. Even if it was for a while. He looked at me like I was the only real thing he'd ever touched. I thought I was dying, he said. And then you came in with your loud opinions, your thrift store scarves, and your love for bad rom-coms. And suddenly, I wasn't scared anymore. Tears pricked the corners of my eyes. I had no idea. I got better, miraculously. But by then, I'd already signed the marriage contract. I told myself it was still for convenience, for image, for business. But it wasn't. It was you. It was always you. I stared at him, stunned. And for the first time, I didn't know what to say. Because suddenly, the contract didn't feel like a trap. It felt like a lifeline. And I started to wonder, what if I hadn't just been pretending either? What if somewhere in the middle of the fake smiles, and the late-night silences and the fights over frozen pizza, I'd actually fallen for him too? The night was crisp, and the city glittered with lights as the new year approached. Kira stood by the door, suitcase in hand, feeling the weight of everything she had gone through in the past 2 years. The contract was about to expire. The whole arrangement with Hunter had been temporary, just a business deal, nothing more. Yet, standing there now, she couldn't shake off the feeling that something was missing, something she hadn't anticipated, the emotions that had crept in quietly when she wasn't paying attention. She turned the handle, ready to leave, but before she could even open the door, Hunter stepped in front of her, blocking the exit. His eyes were intense, darkened with an emotion Kira couldn't quite place. "You're not leaving," he said, his voice firm but tinged with desperation. It was the first time he had spoken to her with such urgency, without the usual coldness or indifference. Kira froze, looking at him with a mixture of confusion and curiosity. "Hunter, what are you? I can't let you walk away. Not like this," he interrupted, stepping closer. There was a vulnerability in his stance, a rawness that Kira had never seen before. His normally composed demeanor had crumbled, and for a fleeting moment, he looked like a man who had lost everything. Kira's heart skipped a beat. Her mind raced back to the beginning, the initial coldness of their contract, the way they had been two strangers bound by duty, not affection. She had come into this with no expectations, just a desire to get through it, to do her part, and leave when it was all over. But now, standing before her was a man who was pleading for something more, something beyond the confines of the agreement they had signed. "Why now, Hunter?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Why after all this time?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took a deep breath, like he was gathering his thoughts, his words. "Because I've realized something," he said, voice cracking slightly. "These 2 years, they've meant more than just a business arrangement. I've fallen in love with you, Kira. I can't pretend anymore that this was just about the contract." The words hung in the air, heavy with truth. Kira's chest tightened, her breath catching in her throat. She had thought it was just her who had started to feel something, to care more than she should. But hearing him say it, hearing the raw honesty in his voice, made it all so real. "You're lying," Kira whispered, her voice trembling. "This isn't real. We were just business partners. We weren't supposed to care about each other." Hunter shook his head, his eyes full of regret. "I thought so too, at first. But then I started seeing you not as a contract, but as a person. And when the time came to let you go, I realized I didn't want to. I need you in my life, Kira. Not because of some agreement, but because I love you." Kira felt her walls crumble, every word from Hunter tearing down the defenses she had built around her heart. She had been prepared to walk away, to leave without a second glance, to close that chapter and move on. But now, everything she thought she knew about this situation felt like a lie. I don't know what to say, she admitted, her voice soft, unsure. I didn't expect this. I thought you were just going to let me go like you always do. But now you're saying this. Hunter stepped forward, gently taking her hands in his. Kira, I've been a fool. I should have told you sooner. I should have told you that it wasn't just about the contract. It was about us. About what we could be together. I'm asking you now. Please, don't leave. Don't walk away from me. There was no turning back now. The weight of his words pressed down on her chest, and for the first time in a long time, Kira allowed herself to feel everything: hope, fear, longing. She had always been the one to hold back, to guard her heart, but now it felt like it was finally time to let go. With a shaky breath, Kira looked into his eyes. I didn't know what to feel either, she whispered. But maybe I was waiting for you to say something, to make me believe that this was real, that you actually cared. Hunter's face softened, his lips curling into a small, bittersweet smile. I care, Kira. I care more than you know. Kira nodded slowly, her heart finally catching up with her mind. Then let's stop pretending. Let's stop pretending that this was just about a contract and start something real. In that moment, Kira felt a wave of relief wash over her, the weight of years of emotional distance lifting. They were no longer bound by a piece of paper, by a contract. This was about them, about a future they could build together. As if on cue, the sound of fireworks echoed outside, the bright lights exploding in the night sky to signal the arrival of the new year. It felt like a sign, like the universe itself was giving them a fresh start. Kira and Hunter stood there, in the middle of their shared moment, their hearts racing with newfound possibilities. Hunter gently cupped her face, his thumb brushing against her skin, before leaning in slowly. The kiss was soft, tentative at first, like a promise they had both been waiting for, waiting to give and to receive. When they pulled away, their foreheads pressed together, the fireworks still lighting up the sky. Kira felt the weight of the past fall away, replaced by something brighter, something filled with hope. They were no longer strangers. They were no longer just two people bound by an agreement. They were partners, lovers, and that was all that mattered now. You're not going anywhere, Hunter said softly, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. Not now, not ever. Kira smiled, her heart full. I think I'm done running. The fireworks continued to explode above them, their brilliant colours lighting the night sky. And as Kira and Hunter stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, it was clear that their story was only just beginning.